Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. We are going to do a little bit of a live chat here on Substack, go over some headlines, and then we have an episode being released with former HUD Secretary Julian Castro here later today. So we look forward to chatting with him. We're going to chat about all these things. We have the Texas redistricting. We have what's going on in DC. I have some questions about what's happening with HUD. He ran for president in 2020. He was the mayor of San Antonio at one point. So immigration, gosh, there's so much we can talk to him about.
That indeed. We look forward to this. This is going to be fun. Yes, indeed.
Okay, so let's start with the headlines here. We saw some big moves in your old stomping grounds. Yesterday, President Trump announced that he is deploying about 800 National Guard troops to the nation's capital. He claimed this is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And here's the problem, though. The DOJ says the crime rate actually fell to the lowest rate in 30 years before this happened. He also said the DOJ would take command of the Metropolitan Police Department and that you will either see FBI agents or police on the streets. This is what he said, you're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed. Okay, so he is required to notify Congress within 48 hours as laid out by the DC Home Rule Act. And the law also says he can only take control of DC police for 30 days, but Congress could extend that. And then he's also announced he's removing homeless camps. So some attorneys are calling this unlawful. And a lot of people are pointing out, hey, he did not call in the National Guard on January 6th.
Well, he did not call in the National Guard on January 6th. In fact, he was requested to do that and did not because I guess people that are working to overthrow the government aren't really a threat, I guess. I don't know. Hey, look, this in a word is, in my opinion, is the the definition of trying to make people look a different direction. I work on a lot of equipment. I buy a lot of stuff, just like everybody that's watching it does. The inflation rate's going through the roof, and the tariffs aren't helping. Um, you're seeing all sorts of things in our economy that are going upside down. You see the Epstein thing that's happening. You see the taking away of due process and all that. Look, this is all about pivoting and moving to something else. Unfortunately, it's also, I think, about what's the world going to look like if martial law is instituted. And this is what happens when you do have a president that doesn't is so old that they don't know what they're doing. And quite frankly, I think that's what's going on right now. He's being told what to do. He's not thinking real well, in my opinion, or he would reevaluate his tariff crap because it's killing us economically. And he'd also released the Epstein stuff because he promised to do that, but he hasn't done it. And so this is about make sure people take their eyes off the ball. I just this is this is crazy. It's also a Democratic city, and so you've got plenty of Republican-run cities that are probably worse than Washington D.C. I've never ever went to a town and said this is a Democratic city or this is a Republican city. This is how crazy this whole partisan bullshit has gotten. And so, yeah, bad deal. I think it's stupid. I think it hurts the country. I think it hurts our nation's capital. I think if we're waiting for Congress to do something, just look at the last 7 months. They haven't done jack shit, and they ain't going to do anything on this. It's my prediction.
Um, Yeah, I always think about that, like when you say a blue state or a red state. I mean, because we live in Montana, which is now a deep red state. There are lots of Democrats who live here. You go to a blue state, there are lots of Republicans that live there. So it's not like it's just all sequestered into one area. But the other thing that I think about with this is I spent a lot of time in DC. In the grand scheme of cities I've traveled to, I really feel safe there. Like, have you had any incidents that you didn't feel safe when you were there?
So look, there's parts of the town that you got to be careful not to go into, especially at night. But hell,
Like every town.
there's parts of Montana like that. Okay, you gotta use your brains, and I just think that this whole thing is just It's a really bad precedent, I think, especially when it's being done without a sense of what the hell's really going on in the town. And as far as cities go, I'll just tell you this. On the East Coast, this is my own personal opinion. Boston's my favorite. Oh, I guess that's a city now, isn't it? Oh my God, you can't have that. And Washington D.C. is second, probably because I know the town better. But they're all great. But the truth is Philly and New York and Miami and all those cities and all of everybody else that I've forgotten about in between are great towns in great cities and have their own ambiance. But for the president to walk out, not even knowing what a dozen eggs costs or a loaf of bread costs, and say, "Well, there's too much violence going on here," when the truth is, this is all about politics, and in the end, the folks at D.C. will probably end up suffering.
Okay, so the Supreme Court has been formally asked to take up a case that urges the court to overturn the Obergefell v. Hodges ruling. That was the ruling that guaranteed the right to same-sex marriage across the nation. Justice Clarence Thomas specifically mentioned this in his statements when the court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. This has been something a lot of my LGBTQ friends have been talking about and worried about since then. The filing says if it is overturned, the issue would go back to the states. Any same-sex couples already married would be grandfathered in. No word here on when the Supreme Court will decide, but I don't have to say this. I've seen a lot of posts from my friends who are LGBTQ who are very, very worried about this.
Well, what I think what this says, if you're gay and you want to get married, go get married right now because then you'll be grandfathered in. I mean, I don't understand why this case is brought forth to the Supreme Court. Number one, number two, if they will take it up. Number two, look, if gay marriage is bad, which who the hell cares? If same-sex marriage is same-sex marriage. If people love one another, they ought to be able to marry. I don't understand why this is even going on. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it really does make same-sex folks second class, in my opinion. And so this is well, hell, this is Justice Clarence Thomas's agenda, quite frankly. So that's what he wants. And like I say, they've been asked to take it up. They may or may not take the case up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep. And we'll see what happens here. But I remember this, during the 2016 election cycle, I remember how many people did we hear say, "This is the law of the land," when asked about Roe v. Wade. It's a law of the land. It's a law of the land. It's already been decided.
yep,
And now everything is just kind of, we don't hear that very much anymore because things have been overturned.
yep.
Okay. Big meeting coming up this week in Alaska with President Donald Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump said on Friday that there will be a swapping of territories and a ceasefire deal. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, no way. Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. We have other leaders of countries across the world saying Zelensky should be at this meeting, kind of really taking backseat, though, to all this news coming out of D.C.
Well, Zelensky should be at the meeting. And they're talking about his country, and they've been fighting for it with their lives. We have seen Putin delay so he could bomb the shit out of them since Trump got into office. We've seen us pull back resources for Ukraine, somebody who's fighting for their democracy, somebody who is occupied by a dictatorial president. Look, I don't know what's going to come out of this thing with Putin, but I'll be surprised if anything changes. I think they're going to still continue to bomb, and the president's probably going to say, "Well, I tried, but it's Ukraine's fault." When in fact, Ukraine did nothing wrong here. This is Russia's fault, and Russia needs to be held accountable, and that's where we're at.
All right, a lot of people, especially women I know, talking about this one. There's a new clip out. It was amplified and shared by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Basically, CNN did this whole story about kind of the the religious movement happening across the country, and they went to Idaho. And the story features pastors saying that women shouldn't be able to vote. Some are calling for the 19th Amendment to be repealed. Your history brush up here says that's the amendment that gave women the right to vote. And Hegseth shared it with the comments of, quote, all of Christ for all of life. So a lot of people are watching this and wondering if that's something they're coming for next. That it should be like a household vote, not
Well,
women's right.
you just got in talking about gay marriage potentially being revoked by the Supreme Court. So, I think anything's out there. My dad, God bless his soul, great guy, always had a saying, religion isn't bad, it's the people in it that make it bad. Um, True. It's a true statement right here. Look at it on paper. The fact that these folks are trying to devalue women, which you can say anything you want, say, no, no, that's not it. Bullshit. That's what you're trying to do. Just goes contrary to everything that normal people believe in. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's
All, by the way, all in the name of religion. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
I'll eliminate. Yeah, I know. I think everyone needs to go back and watch Mary Poppins and watch the suffragette movement there. All of the women
So
rallying for the right of vote. Or
I got Maritza, I disagree. I got a better idea. Maybe I ought to start by reading the goddamn Constitution. Okay,
oh,
that'd
that
be
would be
nice.
better.
That'd be
That
nice.
would be
And
better.
then Mary Poppins right after that. Then Mary Poppins
All
goes
right.
away.
Then Mary Poppins. Yeah, I just can't even believe we're talking about this. So, here we are. And then the other thing, this happened last week, but we really need to talk about it. And we're actually working on an episode specifically about this. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. cut funding for mRNA vaccine research to the tune of $500 million. Okay, so the former Surgeon General during Trump 1.0, Jerome Adams, came out right away. He said it's short sighted. It puts us at a disadvantage globally. RFK said this is because the mRNA vaccines didn't protect effectively against COVID-19. He said they're unsafe, all contradicted, by the way, by peer-reviewed scientific studies. But also, these mRNA vaccines are not just about COVID. And there has been, I mean, I remember when I was covering COVID extensively, that's all I covered. And then the vaccines came out, and everybody was so excited to go get their vaccine so we could get back to normal. There have been studies about how to use these vaccines to treat and protect against cancer, other deadly diseases. And the really scary thing that I talked about last night, I think, is that once these go away, you can't just flip the switch back on. I mean, this is decades of research that if you just get rid of, you can't continue that research. You'd have to start back over. So,
Oh, so correct, young child. You're correct. Um, Look, there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm going to start by saying the person who says that vaccines don't work is a guy that takes his grandkids swimming in sewage in Washington, D.C. Maybe that's where President Trump should send the National Guards, clean up the waters. That'd be great. Look, I'm all about making America healthy again. Maha. I think that'd be great to do, but this ain't doing it. When I was in the Senate, I talked to an individual. I'll save him that, but he said, the United States doesn't lead the world in a lot of things, but what they do lead the world in is research. And this Make America Great Again movement, now it wants to take that away and give that to China because that's exactly where it's going to go. And then we will be dependent on those guys, the same people that Trump put the tariffs on to hold them accountable. This doesn't make any sense at any level. And it's what happens when you have a lunatic, the Department of Health and Human Services. And I mean that absolutely unequivocally. I wouldn't hire RFK to come out and pull weeds in my field. There's no way in hell that he should be Health and Human Services Secretary because he doesn't have a clue about what the fuck is going on.
would you let me come pull weeds in your field?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, he should.
All right. That's good. Hey, George is on our Substack here, and he says if you look at the political trouble brewing for 2026, women are looking strong and scaring MAGA minions. Is that
Yeah,
part of what's at play here?
well, maybe I hope it is that shallow, but I think it's also a belief that women are second class citizens. Quite frankly, I think it's both. Probably driven by the latter, but the former also has impacts. I
I
think
have
he's
to get
right,
on
though.
it.
I think it's a good thing to think of. I mean, these guys are changing the rules on gerrymandering, which sucks anyway, which we'll get into Secretary Castro here in a bit.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I think we should kind of discuss here is that as we look at 2026 and beyond, and we talk about going back and reading the Constitution, how many people said, "Go read Project 2025"?
Everybody,
And
yeah.
have you read it all 900 some pages?
I've got it committed to memory. I've got a chapter and verse. No, I have not read it. Read parts of
It's a
it.
lot. It's a lot.
I mean, it's a load, but you know what? It's being implemented chapter and verse. That's a fact. And just go down the line. And people are getting so desensitized that they aren't even understanding, or they're not even caring, I guess, really what's going on. As the lady who was not on Putin's good side, who I got to know through my work with the University of Chicago, said, "This is no time to be complacent. No time to sit on your hands. This is a time where people need to speak up and make sure their opinions are heard for as long as we have an amendment that says we have freedom of speech."
Nancy is commenting that pulling weeds builds work ethic for kids. I agree, Nancy.
Yeah, and
I
since
agree.
you're still a child at heart, you could go do that. It would do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, last headline before we hop off here. So the vice president, JD Vance, has been on a lot of vacations. A lot of people are looking at these vacations, but most recently he went on an Ohio river trip to celebrate his birthday. And apparently, the security detail had the water level raised to allow that kayaking trip.
Well, being
The
vice
Secret
president,
Service requested it. The Secret
by
Service
being vice
requested the
president has
increase.
its benefits, I guess. Yeah, thank God he didn't get hurt because of the hot water or the people in Ohio Water District, or whatever the name
I
of it.
mean,
And then
most people, most people, if the water levels are too low, maybe you go to a different river or you make a
yeah,
different
that
plan.
that that would probably be a good idea. But remember, he's from Ohio, so it's probably why he wanted to be in Ohio. You know.
Oh, yeah,
But
that's right.
there's some pretty vicious whitewater rafting in the West, and is he out here? Is he supposed to be out here pretty quick, raising a bunch of money for the Republicans down in Big
Oh,
Sky,
he just was. He just
which
was.
isn't really Montana, but it's a short drive to Montana. What's that?
He just was here. Yeah. It is
You're just right
Montana.
here.
Big Sky's Montana. Well, you mean like in the cultural
Yes,
reference?
in the cultural route.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. We are going to hop off. We are going to go have our conversation with former HUD Secretary Julian Castro. If you have any questions you want us to ask him or things to chat about, you can send us a message here. And then we will release that conversation later today. But it's been a little bit. I was out of town and Senator Tester's been working on the farm, so we wanted to hop on and have this chat. We want to thank everybody who joined us live. And yeah, we'll be back on probably later this week. I'm hoping to get something scheduled about all of this health stuff, vaccine research, and you name it. Maha.
Aha. All right.
Aha.
See you,
All
everybody. Take
right.
care. Be
Bye,
well. Have a
guys.
great day. Have a great week.